Hello, and welcome to Introducing Me. I'm your host, Sarah. I started this podcast to get to know other people and lifestyles while discovering more about myself. Each episode, I will give a new guest a chance to discuss their background, culture, interest, or whatever they want to talk about to help increase all of our own worldviews. Today, I would like to introduce you to Don Paul Kahl, who commonly goes by DP. He is a concert saxophonist around the world, having originally grown up in Pennsylvania and is currently living in Belgium. So he's got a lot of great things to share. So I'm just going to let him tell us more about himself so we can learn all about him. So DP, why don't you go ahead and tell us about your story?
Thank you so much, Sarah, for having me, and it's my pleasure to be here and to talk with you and to introduce myself to everyone. And yeah, maybe they can understand themselves as well a little bit more through me. That would be like the ideal. So that'd be really great. So as you said, I'm a concert saxophonist, originally based in Pennsylvania. Grew up, raised here in central Pennsylvania. And now I'm living in Belgium. So growing up, I was, a pretty weird kid. I was doing my mom would take me to all the artsy things. I was in art school. I took piano lessons. I took flute lessons because originally I started on flute. I took singing lessons. I joined an opera choir in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania for young kids. My mom was carting me around nonstop. She was really, as she was and still is, like my biggest support. And I couldn't have done it without her, anything really. So it's been, thinking back on that time, I was kind of groomed a little bit to be in the arts and to thrive in this world. And yeah, from there my high school experience was a little bit very central Pennsylvania because or at least more Perry County, because I was the only real musical kid that really took it to the upteenth degree, that really wanted to go for it. I was basically that sports guy that in school, but for music. And I really wanted to do everything, go to the district bands and go to the district choirs and do everything. I really lived for that, competition culture back in high school. And it led me to really discover that I loved concert music, and I loved band culture. I loved, working on, really detailed things and working with these great artists, conductors and my colleagues then as well. And I loved that experience. So I decided to major in music at the maybe less enthusiastic what is it? My family wasn't so enthusiastic. They wanted me to study business or be a lawyer or something like that. The typical kind of thing for a family. But I was set on it. My heart was set, and I went to Susquehanna because I took lessons with Gail Levinsky in high school for a few years, and I loved her, and it just felt right. And Susquehanna was a right fit for me. I really grew and prospered there, and I made really long-lasting friends and colleagues, and some of them I still keep in touch with today. And Susquehanna has been really great for me. I really love that network and whatnot. But during Susquehanna, college is always this kind of weird transition moment for anyone. I mean, you're really coming into your own. You're kind of figuring out what it is to be an adult, but in a very structured, very nurturing way, because with Dr. Levinsky, who lovingly goes by Doc, with her, she's very motherly with all of her students, and she was very there, present all the time. I mean, so that was good for me because I needed. I mean, my mom wasn't so far away, but I needed that kind of familial kind of nurturing. at that moment, and she guided you step by step, and I love that because I got really close attention from her all the time. And from there, I started out as a music education major, wanting to, follow in the educators before me and whatnot. But I realized that it wasn't for me, that I had something else inside me, that it was more performance based, that it was more wanting this kind of a different lifestyle than, I don't want to say like settling to be an educator, because I think it's really hard to be an educator, but I wanted something different, and I decided to, forego the path that may be more lucrative than a random performance classical saxophone player would take. I mean, if I played violin, maybe it would be a little bit easier, maybe. But no, I forged ahead, and I was always very focused. And with the help from Doc and from everybody there, it really worked out. So from there, from Susquehanna, I then went to University of Florida. I studied with Jonathan Helton and Jeffrey Dybel. Jeffrey Dybel mostly on new music, Jonathan Helton on standards and technique, and a little bit of the kind of new but now old American music. And that was really, really wonderful for me in a lot of ways, because I made more connections, and I met my future duo partner, Jackie Glazier. So I'm in a duo, a professional duo with clarinet and saxophone called Duo Entre Nous. And we formed in Paris a little bit later afterwards. But I met Jackie firstly at University of Florida. At University of Florida, I decided to really focus most of my attention then on contemporary music, and how to kind of deal with this new attitude, this new aesthetic, this new way of playing. Because at Susquehanna, it was mostly, okay, let's do the main standards, do them really, really well, and learn technique, and learn how to play, and learn how to blow. And that led me to kind of realize that, okay, there is this thing, but I want to do more. I've always been searching for to do more, to grab onto something that's really, in the distance, and pull myself to it, in whatever way I could. So that really captured me, because it was a language that meant that felt modern. It felt more towards my time, instead of reinterpreting something that's been reinterpreted a million times. So from there, I started speaking with composers there, and also one of my best friends from Susquehanna, Tyler Austin, introduced me to the works of Molly Joyce. At the time, she was studying at Juilliard in New York City. And this became one of grown into this really incredible collaboration with her. She's written a couple of pieces for me, and this first piece that she wrote for me, called Dew of the Moon, is one of the biggest works of my repertoire, and has outlasted my playing and whatnot. And it's it's something that I really, really enjoy, that I was able to be the first commissioner of this piece. And so University of Florida was this kind of awakening moment for me, that I knew that I could do it. I had it in me to do contemporary music. I knew that I had the technique and the ability to do so, at least in the U.S. At the time. I knew that I could make it work. But I struggled a little bit knowing what I wanted to do, because, the normal path of a saxophonist in the United States is, or at least a performance major, is, you do your bachelor, you go directly to your master, and you go directly to your DMA. You don't wait at all. I mean, it's really fixed. And I didn't necessarily want this. I had in the back of my mind for a really long time that I wanted to go to Paris. I wanted to live a metropolitan lifestyle, go for it, hold nothing back. I guess that's like the biggest thing of my life, is like, don't hold back, don't reserve yourself, just go for it. And I applied for a couple of scholarships on the behest of my teacher there, Jonathan Helton, and he helped me quite a lot. And I was successful in gaining a scholarship to study for one fully paid year of academic study in Paris. So the next year after I graduated, I moved to Paris, and that was terrifying because my French was so not good. I mean, I thought I was okay. I was doing my it wasn't even there wasn't even Duolingo at the time. It was Rosetta Stone at the time, and I was doing that every day, and I was terrible. I mean, I the first day I got there, I needed to go find food, and I could not function get with directions in French at all. It's like basics 101. I couldn't do it. Um, and so it got better because, in France they only speak French, and they're very determined. Like, if you live here, please speak our language. So it got better and better and better. And my teacher there, Jean-Michel Goury, he only spoke French to me even from our first lesson, and it was really, it worked really well. But while in France, I was, I wanted to do everything. I decided to focus my studies because it was a scholarship, so I had to prove what I was doing. I said, I'm going to use this year to study for the Londex competition, the Jean-Marie Londex competition. It's one of two major competitions for saxophone. And at this time, I had the very unlofty goal at the time, but I thought it was very lofty. I was like, I'm just gonna get past the first round. That's all I want to do. I mean, I don't think I'm good enough, but I'm just gonna get past the first round because living in Paris, you have maybe 150 to 250 professional saxophonists in just the metropolitan area. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, the amount of talent in this city is insane, and that's overwhelming. And I had to like really rebuild myself from the ground up and really start from zero because any technique that I had in that I thought I was good at, it wasn't good enough at all. And so I had to really restart and build myself up and work on the contemporary techniques and really figure out how the Parisian like style of playing like could complement my American side of playing. And what was that, and how, did they fight with each other, or were they wed really really well? So I struggled for a whole year on this, and I said, look, my goal is to get past the first round of the competition. Well, I get past the first round, and then I get past the second round, and now I'm in the finals, and I end up becoming a prize winner. And it's this like really humbling moment because I didn't expect it at all. I just played the best that I could, and put my heart into it, and it paid off. And I think that was the moment that I thought, okay, if I can do this, if I can prove to my community that I'm worthwhile, then I can prove this to everyone else. That I don't need to struggle so much anymore. In a lot of ways, that's somewhat true, but in a lot of ways, that was a bit naive as well. So after riding high off of the win from Londex, I decided to stay another year in Paris, finish my studies completely in the program that I was doing. And while there, I met a Belgian, and we started to see each other quite a lot. And I was going back and forth to Belgium to see them. And I decided, okay, well, if I can do this, if I can make my career work here in Europe, and I have a direct tie, why not stay in Europe for a little bit? I mean, at least until, things change, or I'm over it, or, I want to settle into a DMA program or whatnot. So I decide to go to Belgium from Paris, which was a good move for me because Paris is huge, and as I said, there's a lot of saxophonists, there's a lot of talent there, and I coming from little tiny Perry County, going to Susquehanna, a little bit bigger, but not that much bigger. Then going to University of Florida, which was massive, but not as big as Paris. I was looking to downsize a little bit. So I live in, I moved to the city called Ghent, Belgium, and it's about 30 minutes away on the train from Brussels, 20 minutes on the train from Bruges. It's this beautiful little city, and it was exactly the right pace for me. I'm situated in a place where I can go to Brussels very easy. I can go to Amsterdam very easy. Paris, if I want to go back to Paris, it's super, super nice. And it's been a lovely city for me, and that's where I live now, still. So I said that I mentioned that I went there for love, but I was also, working with my quartet, and which is called the Ensemble du bout du monde, or the Ensemble at the Edge of the World. And we, at the time, were comprised of 4 musicians from all over the world, one from Australia, Israel, United States, which was me, and one from France. And we kind of had these 4 different main continents that were kind of coming together and colliding, and it was this really nice kind of feeling to say, okay, we can bridge all these cultures together. Eventually, things happen to other people and they don't want to be in part of the quartet, or they're moving on. So now it's actually the Israeli, myself, and then 2 Italians in the quartet. But, we still have a little bit of dominion. But we started to gain a lot of notoriety, and our performances were being picked up by quite some famous composers. And we started to have a big season, a lot of concerts in all over Europe and things like this. And so we have kind of dominated in a little bit in the young contemporary music scene in Europe, and that's been this kind of driving moment for me in chamber music, along with my duo, which is based in the US. So I will come back to that in a little bit, but I said that I came to Ghent for love. Well, it didn't work out with the person that I moved to Ghent to be with, but shortly thereafter I discovered that, well, I didn't discover because I knew inside of me, I decided that I needed to be true to myself 100%. And I came out of the closet. I am a gay man. I identify as that. And I was very much happier once I did so, because it's hard to talk about, but like when you are so free in your performance kind of thing, and you're so open-minded, and you're a musician, you're an artist, and it's so liberating to be on stage, and you can't hide your true self in that moment when you're performing. You can't say, look, I'm going to put on a million masks and not have them come off, or you have to put that real person on stage, or the audience is going to know. They're going to be, that's fake. That person is not real. Who is that up there playing that saxophone? Because they don't match, So it was a liberating moment for me to finally be who I was, and to be happy with who I was, and to just say, screw it. I'm going to live my life out loud, who I want to be, and be with who I want to be with. And so I started to really gain a lot more self-confidence in my solo playing and my solo career, and that has shot up really, really quite fast since I came out, which was in 2018. Shortly thereafter, but not directly after coming out, I met a wonderful guy, and I am, we are partnered in Belgium now, and we have a really wonderful life. And so my life is based there with him, and with my ensembles throughout, either in Switzerland with my ensemble, with my quartet, or in Arizona with my duo. And then also speaking of ensembles based in Europe, I have just recently, during the pandemic actually, started a new ensemble, a reed quintet, which has given me that kind of orchestral experience that I've always kind of really clung to. You know, I wanted to be a little bit of an orchestra musician that could never be an orchestra musician playing saxophone. So I really love this ensemble because it gives me that kind of color and depth to the sound that I really love. So that ensemble is named Woodwork, and we are based in Belgium. Everyone is Belgian except for me. I'm, the imposter of the quintet. But we're doing really great things and some fantastic projects, and it's been, kind of a lifeline through the pandemic. At the beginning of so I think that like brings me a little bit to the present day at the moment. I just released my debut solo album called Go Within. And that has been a really exciting project that I started at the beginning of the pandemic. At the beginning of the pandemic, like most people, lots of things changed very quickly, and it was very disconcerting. I mean, when you see, I think I had maybe 40 to 50 concerts in the span of 1 month just evaporate. And that's really disheartening and awful, especially when I mean, I make all of my living from performing. And that was really a bad time for me. I sunk very low. And at the same time, one of my very good friends that was in my quartet, the Ensemble du Bout du Monde, decided to quit, to leave the quartet. And I was, my own issues, my own problems with that came up in March, April, May of 2020 started to, be, right there at me. I mean, it was in my face. And then also, okay, now we have to rebuild our quartet from the ground up. It was a week and a half or something that I was just, on the couch. I didn't know what to do with myself. I couldn't touch my horn. I couldn't do anything. And that's unlike me. I am this bubbly kind of person that cannot stop, that doesn't stop. And I said, look, Don Paul, no, we're not going to get depressed. We're not going to get in this funk for what may be, and, we're not out of it yet. At the time I said, what maybe, maybe 4 or 5 months from now, we're not out of it. So, but things in Europe and in US can, go better and better, especially in Europe. Every day. So what I said to myself was like, look, you are given this time. What do you want to do with it? You have no concerts coming up, or very few concerts. You can't travel. You can't see your friends. You can't do anything. You have to be inside. What are you going to do? So I said, it's been a dream to do a solo record, do an album. Let's do it. And so I chose all pieces that have been commissioned by me except one. And I said, look, we're going to do this the right way. And now I have time to practice all of these things and do it correctly. So that's what I did. And I released the album. I recorded everything this past summer, and I released the album on the 15th of September. And, I've seen a lot of good reviews and good things from people. So that's a little bit of me. I mean, that was a very long introduction of me, but maybe you have some questions for me and we can go down those rabbit holes.
Yeah, and I appreciate you taking us through like the chronological journey and really explaining how one thing really did lead to another, and how, being able to identify and embrace your true self really then translated to the rest of your life, like professionally, that things started to get so much better. And then to the pandemic, to be like, what am I going to do and still produce great music by releasing this CD. So there's so many avenues we could go down. But I'm curious to know, you talked a little bit about when you first landed in Paris and not speaking French well at all. So, what was it like outside of the language barrier in these different areas that you've lived in, trying to adjust to the culture?
That's a really great question, actually, and something that I tend not to focus on because we're so like eager to learn the language, or it's a good barrier, the language. But also there are really big cultural differences between Americans, or even from where you are in the US, where you have grown up, or what you know, and then to place yourself in Paris, Parisian culture, or in Ghent, or in Belgium, which it's somewhat the same a little bit, but there are still stark differences that you can see once you kind of move past the kind of beauty of the people and their kind of way of being and whatnot. You do see some really stark differences. So I think like one of the biggest things that I noticed, and I think a lot of people will relate to, is that I didn't have a car anymore, and public transport was not like a thing for me ever. And trying to navigate the metro and be courteous and kind and whatnot. I mean, there's this kind of unspoken about rule in Paris that when you are in the metro, you do not talk, like, at all. And I love to talk all the time. So like I'm there like the first days on my phone calling my mom or my friends and whatnot, because it's like dead time to me. It's like, okay, I have a nice hour on the train. I'm just gonna call people. But I quickly realized that people were staring at me in the like worst ways possible, and really giving me awful looks. And I was like, well, what's wrong with you? Like, I'm just talking on the phone. And it's not that I was screaming or anything, but they just want to have their time on the metro as sacred, have their little croissant, they don't really drink coffee on the thing, but really, just read their book or listen to their music very quietly. And that was something that I learned very quickly, that, oh, okay, I should really also follow them. So, and in a lot of ways, because this was my first, big abroad experience where I was living there, because I had gone, to France before, I had gone to Italy, I'd been in Japan before. So it was, I knew what to do and what to expect, but these subtle nuances that you do every day, I started to just say, I'm going to look at what other people are doing and kind of follow their example. Whereas, like, that's not my thing. Like, usually I am going to march to the beat of my own drum, and everybody else can, I don't know if I can say this word on the podcast, but I'll say it very nicely. Everybody else can mind their own business. So I learned that really quickly. Also in Ghent, I mean, there's just the normal things of life change a little bit. How you deal with money, how you deal with payments of things. I mean, it's all very, very different, and you don't really know how. Like, for example, how to set up an apartment, like to get an apartment, or like just to rent something, and how to like deal with people on the phone. Like before Paris, I was deathly afraid to call people on the phone. Now I love it. Like, I am constantly calling people like for no reason, just because I really enjoy it. When you have to do something in a foreign language, firstly on the phone, because that's the only way you can make things work in France, then doing it in English is like a luxury, actually. So those are some little things. I mean, dealing with people, like restaurants, for example, learning that. I mean, when I'm in the U.S., I usually eat with one fork, and I just, how we do. But in Europe, it's with fork and knife all the time. And learning how to do that was something strange for me. I never had that experience before. May sound really strange to your listeners, but yeah, those are a few things that I could talk about.
And what is it like then? Because you obviously still have ties in the States, like you're in the States right now, and you have a performing group that's still out of the States. So, what is it like, maybe like pre pandemic? Because I'm sure things have been a little bit different in the last year and a half, but what is it like balancing being in different places and producing music in different places?
Yeah, I mean, I have to work really far ahead in time just so that I don't over plan myself or that I give myself a little bit of downtime. Like, for example, I did a performance this past Monday. It's now Saturday for everyone listening. Uh, this past Monday, and I flew in the day before. So I was traveling for 23 hours and then I gave a performance on Monday. And I told myself, why did I do this? Why did I schedule this? I'm exhausted. And of course the performance is at 7:30 at night here in Pennsylvania time. And that's my 1:30 in the morning. Like, so I was exhausted, but you make it work. I mean, it was very fun, and I slept in, of course. But I think like knowing your limits has become really important to me, and knowing what I'm able to do, and not just jumping on any opportunity, saying yes, 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 let's do it, because that's a little bit the thing that we're taught to do. Like, you don't say no to an opportunity, but you kind of. I think I've grown up enough to know, okay, if I do that, then I need to come back home and have 3 days. I need to have a nice weekend. I have to have a nice 3 days, because for musicians, weekends are working moments usually. So give me like a good Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to rest, to practice for the next thing, and then I go from there. I think I've just learned really that time management is really important. So when I set things up in the U.S., I'm looking, at least 6 months or more ahead of time to make sure that I'm okay. For example, now that things are kind of um, going a little bit better, especially in Europe, um, all of our performances that were canceled are getting rescheduled now for this moment. So in a couple of weeks, I will have my quartet come to Ghent to work on a project for the Flemish TV and radio, and then we fly directly from Belgium to Israel for this tour that's been postponed and canceled and postponed for, this is like its fourth time. So we're going to Israel, and then I come home because I was very adamant about it. I come home for a couple days, and then I go to home, being Belgium for everyone listening. And then I fly to Cyprus for another festival of new music, for 5 days. Then we fly directly together to Switzerland for another tour, which will be 4 or 5 days. And then I fly home and I have 3 days to recover. And then I have a performance weekend, as a concerto soloist. So this kind of thing, I mean, I live for it, this kind of dynamic kind of thing. But I have to know that I need to have some downtime and some time to myself, and it's really important. Or I know that burnout is gonna happen if I just keep going as an Energizer bunny for forever. And I could do it, but I know that it wouldn't become enjoyable. And like at the end of the day, I'm really happy that I love what I do, and that I'm passionate about it, and that I give all to what I'm doing, and instead of, oh, okay, it's just routine, it's just whatever, okay, I'm gonna perform, whatever. I mean, it's fine. But I think that for me, it's important to know what I'm capable of and to plan ahead of time for it.
Right. Now, are you doing all of the planning yourself for all of these groups, or is it kind of a collaborative between the different members? And like, how are you going about getting all of these great tours?
Yeah, so most of it is done by us. So I mean, for example, the Israeli that's in our quartet, Noah Mick, she planned the tour in Israel, and I planned the thing in Belgium. So we kind of take over our zones of comfortability, and with the EBM, the quartet. Ensemble du Bout du Monde, is we're going to come to the US in a few years, maybe in the next year, we'll see. And then I will take over that. If we're in Italy or in France, where one is based right now, one of the Italians in the quartet, then they take over a little bit more of the sharing of that thing. And it's also from an administrative point of view as well, that I'll take over everything for Belgium and the US just because I'm comfortable with that and I know. And so yeah. Otherwise, for things that I'm planning myself, it's all on me most of the time. I do have an agent. My quartet has an agent as well, but they're looking at very particular things. And when they do find something for us, then they handle everything. And, we have the kind of star-studded treatment then that we don't have to deal with anything. But I've gotten really, really good at reading contracts and negotiating and being a kind of what I like to say is a musical entrepreneur, which only kind of happens and through experience and failing a lot actually, and kind of figuring out what worked and didn't work and how I could navigate the thing. But I really enjoyed it. Makes my day really dynamic when, okay, I'm going to warm up for an hour, and then I'm going to practice my repertoire for XYZ gigs, and then I'm going to give calls to these foundations and these cultural centers and working out this gig there and whatnot. And that makes it really, really nice. And then also, I have to plan in that I need to call the US at a good time, so that it makes my life really dynamic and also gives a lot of variety in it. And that I like a lot. So a very long-winded answer for your question, though.
But it makes sense, and I think it's good to hear kind of that like inside knowledge as someone who doesn't do all of that, like what has to go into it. Now, are you looking at possibly becoming a Belgian citizen?
I am. So I have permanent residence there. My boyfriend and I, we are partnered, legally partnered, and so it gives me 5 years to like permanent resident status. So I was on a student visa before because I'm doing my PhD in extended saxophone techniques. So I had a student visa, but we were just over it, over getting it renewed every year, and then it's a hassle for this, that, the other thing. So we planned on getting, it's called a legal status called samenwonen, which means living together, but it's basically that we're legally partnered. We had planned on doing it anyway, and so until we get married, which may happen in the future, then so basically if we get married, then I can go for Belgian citizenship right away, or I wait 5 years and then I can apply myself to become Belgian. So that's in the cards, yes, because it would make just to travel a little bit easier. There's really no difference now. When I was on a student visa, it was a little bit harder to prove and a little bit more difficult to work, but I have unlimited working capabilities both in the US and in Europe, which are mainly my zones of working now, so makes it a lot easier.
And was it difficult to become legally partnered? It's my understanding, at least in the US, to get married to someone who's like on a green card, I believe it is, like there's lots of hoops to jump through to make sure that it's like actually legal. So was that difficult for you?
In theory, it's not really that difficult, but the US makes it a little bit more difficult for me, actually. So we had decided to do this like at the start of the pandemic. So what I needed to do was to go to the US Embassy in Brussels and prove my civil status in the US. And I could only do that under oath and very strict law and things. And they just canceled all appointments for indefinitely. And so I said, okay, well, I'll wait, 3 months. It's fine. What's 3 months? That's nothing. well, 3 months turns into forever with the pandemic, and everything's locked down, and they keep canceling my appointments that I kept making. And so I finally I called up the city of Ghent, and I said, look, we want to do this procedure. It takes literally 15 minutes for it to happen. We want to do this procedure, but I'm an American, and I need I need them to get this paper to you. And they said, okay, we'll contact them. So once they contacted them, I had an appointment for the next day at the embassy, and it was all fine. I mean, I was like, oh my gosh, I should have just done this from the beginning, because I was worried because my student visa was expiring, and I was like, oh my gosh, are they going to ship me back to the U.S.? And what am I doing? I was really worried. So no, it really worked out fine, but it was just a lot of, extra work and extra stress for no reason. Because, in Belgium, everything my boyfriend, he printed out this paper from his cell phone. I mean, he could just take it. It was so easy for him. But I said, yeah, but there's no paper unless you're like married in the U.S. I mean, then you have this kind of status. I said, we don't have a status called single, and I don't have a paper about it. So I just signed this document at the U.S. Embassy in Brussels, and then it worked out very easily. We made an appointment. We went in. They looked at our paperwork, and everything was fine. And right then and there, we were legally partnered. So it was very easy, very easy. And to get married, since we're already legally partnered, it'll be a very smooth thing for us.
That's great to hear how all of that happens. Now, what is it like, because early on you mentioned how much of a supporter your mom is, and obviously she's still in Pennsylvania. So what has it been like being time zones apart from her?
Well, it's a very cute question, because I'm really close with my mom, and even while I'm in Europe, we talk multiple times per week, and if we don't text in one day, that's very strange. So we'll be contacting each other, or we send pictures. I have a lovely cat, and my mom is a cat lady, so we send pictures back and forth of our cats and things like this. But I definitely think that my mom didn't think that Europe was going to be forever, and when she first shipped me off to Paris. So it was hard for her at the beginning, because I'm her only son, and she loves me to death, and she wants me close, and the typical things that parents want for sure for their kids. But she was happy for me that I was following my dreams, and that I was doing exactly what I wanted. So yeah, it was hard at the beginning, but my mom definitely, before pre-pandemic, would come to Europe maybe twice or three times per year to see me, and then I always come back, and I try to always see my mom if I'm in the U.S. for a little bit. But actually, from the pandemic point of view, it was very, very hard. I mean, I didn't see my mom for a really long time. It was a year and a half. A little bit over a year and a half that I didn't see my mom, and I came back to the U.S. to Arizona to finish a CD with my duo Entre Nous with Jackie Glazier in Arizona. And I said, Mom, why don't you just come and stay with me while I'm there? We'll get an Airbnb and we'll make it really nice. And I have family out there in Arizona as well. Let's go. And she jumped on the idea, and seeing her for that first time, I like broke down in the airport. I was like, oh my God, my mom's here. And so much time has passed since I saw her. Since I could give her a hug. And, it was at that moment that I said, like, never again do we make this happen. Like, do we let this happen? Like, even if something happens, we have to see each other. And of course, FaceTime is lovely and whatnot, but it's something different to, see your mom and give her a big hug, and, hear her say that she loves you, and it's in person. So seeing her that time, it was really great. And now we've decided, like, okay, anytime I'm in the US, which next year will be quite a lot, I'm in January, February, May and June so far, I'll be in the US. She's like, I'm gonna come see you. So, she's coming to see me in Kansas City in February, and then she'll come out to Arizona in May, and then I'll be here in June. So yeah, but pre-pandemic for sure, my mom came a lot to Europe, and she's used that as an opportunity to kind of explore the world that she never kind of got to see before. So she loves it, and we have a really close relationship, and we don't necessarily feel that we've lost anything, that I'm not necessarily here in central Pennsylvania for her to come with. It's funny because she says that, with my other cousins, that they don't see or they don't talk to their parents as much as I talk to my mom. So um, she uses that as a kind of thing to get through the day a little bit. So we're very close, very close.
That's really great. And so your mom was really supportive when you were younger, getting you into all of the music things. So I wanted to know, is she at all musical as well, or artistic in any way?
No. I mean, my mom sings a little bit, but she's not super musically inclined. She was a math teacher. She's a retired math teacher now. But she just really wanted me to do what I wanted to do, and she really fostered that as a kid, because it could be the other way. I mean, she could have said, "Oh, he's good at singing. He's good at what he likes to do, but we're not going to enroll him in lessons or things like this." But she's been super supportive. But nobody in my family is really super musical at all. I mean, they have a love of music, but it's not that I came from a family of musicians at all. No.
Yeah. And now you mentioned that one of your big goals was to release a solo CD, and you have done that now. So what is the next big goal? Do you have one?
So, I have a couple of short-term things that are happening. I'm gonna record for another CD. I'm gonna record a couple more CDs, but not full-length albums. Um, or with my duo, since I released also this year in April a duo CD called Fresh Ink with Duo Entre Nous. So it was a lot in one little time frame to do. So I want to perform more. I want to work with composers a lot more. I want to expand the kind of limits of what's possible on the saxophone and showcase that. And I think my solo album was just, it because a solo album, you're kind of like proving to the world what you're capable of doing. And since I think I've done that. I think I've done that pretty well, at least in my opinion. I want to push the boundary now, and say, I kind of like throw out the way of doing things before, and say, okay, let's go even further. Let's push. And so I have a couple things in the works that are going. My big goal, though, for the next year is to finish my PhD and to write the dissertation and be done with it and get it out there, because my dissertation is on saxophone without mouthpiece techniques, and I've kind of put myself in this happily so, I must say, I've put myself in this position of being the expert on these techniques, and I would like to get them out there for other people to explore and to enjoy. So that's one of the things that I want to do this next year, or in next year and a half. We'll see. But I definitely don't want to put it on the back burner at all, and so it's time for that to be done. But personally, my boyfriend and I, we are looking to purchase a house, and a bigger house than we have right now. And I want to keep being happy and doing the things that make me enjoy life, and do it together with the people I love. And yeah, so that's the big dream for forever, I think.
That's great. Now, before I start to wrap things up, is there anything else that you would like to share with the listeners?
I mean, I definitely want to maybe maybe it's a little bit of a downer moment, but I think like what's important to know is that it's not always like sunshine and roses and rainbows and things like this, and that you know it's important to know that like yes, maybe there is sunshine after all of the depressing things and whatnot, but when there's also been some hardships in my life, and we kind of put those things aside sometimes and don't talk about them necessarily because the good things you want to outweigh them. But I think it's important to also give a space to the things that are not necessarily so bright and lovely and whatnot. So, I mean, before I came out, I was in a bit of a depression and a lot of a depression, and I really had to struggle to find again who I was, and music, as I said earlier, really my music was affected, and I didn't necessarily think that I was the person that I wanted to be on stage. And you come from central Pennsylvania. Well, I came from from central Pennsylvania, and it's a very conservative area, and very you have these kind of things on your shoulders, and before you make that big leap to yourself, I was weighing all of these things, and at the end of the day, it was just so heavy of a pressure, and you medicate yourself in other ways, you hurt yourself in ways that if I could take it back, I would, and I would just do something different. But yeah, it's there. There's, I think, like what I want to say by saying this is that be unapologetically you all the time, and make sure that you treat yourself right, and you do good by you first, and think of everyone else maybe after you make yourself, you find a good place for yourself. And I think that's what I did, and I kind of overcame that adversity. So I don't know. I'm sorry to end things a little bit on a little bit of a low note, but it all ended up okay for me. So that's good.
Yeah, and it's a good reality check, and you threw in some good advices there as well. Now, at the end, with all of my guests, I do ask a random question that's a little bit different from what we've been talking about. I am going to stick with music, though, and I would like to know, what music is your guilty pleasure?
Oh, this is. I have gotten into recently, and it's a little bit awful. A little bit of K-pop, if I'm totally honest. I really jam out to this at the gym, or like if I am getting myself psyched up to go somewhere, I will listen to K-pop nonstop. Also, I mean, my boyfriend also really loves it, and he got me into it, and now it's totally a guilty pleasure. I mean, I listen to Blackpink, I listen to BTS. I mean, it's it's very strange, but it works for me. I really like it. And I try so hard to like mouth the words or to sing along, and I can't at all. I get the English things sometimes, but I really jam out to it.
All right, that brings this episode to a close. For direct access to all of what DP is doing, his website will be in the description, so that will bring you to his CD, different works that he's commissioned, and so much more good information, along with all of his other social media. And his website is in English or in French, of course, and also his Instagram will be in the description as well. And of course, all of the podcast information is there as well. If you would like to connect with us, our website will bring you to our Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn website. So we'd love to connect with you there. And if you'd like to support the podcast monetarily, we always accept donations. So that information is there as well. And if you'd like to email me and become a guest, I'm always looking for new people, and I love hearing different stories and getting so many different voices on this podcast. So feel free to reach out for me. Thank you so much, DP, for spending time with me today, and to my listeners for taking the time out of your day to hear a new story. Until next week, bye.
Thanks so much. Ciao for now.